Thanks, Jenny. I've never done one of these before, and if I finish on time, it will be a miracle. Okay, you can see that. Okay, so as Jenny's mentioned, my name's Mick, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is a project I'm going to be having an exhibition with in about 4 weeks' time, I think, downstairs. This image here is from Azraq, which is a Syrian refugee camp, which is in Jordan. And quite a lot of the work that I've been making recently has been based around ideas of the buildings that have been coming up as part of looking after refugees. So just to give you an idea of how I work, I'm very much a hands-on person. In the studio, I'll be making three-dimensional things, quite often from paper. A bit like Frank Lloyd Wright, I still believe that actually cutting things out, working digitally but making maquettes and models is basically the easiest way for me as an artist to visualise how I think about making things. Oh, James, slides are moving on. So this is one that I made from mountboard. I then take it into lithography, which I'm not sure, I won't have time to tell you much about lithography at the moment, but literally it's how newspapers and magazines are printed, and that's one of the sort of main areas that I use to print with. So this is the printed sheet. So what I've done here in Photoshop, I've made these buildings which are completely fabricated, but they're sort of imaginary, but they're taken from the UN's buildings, and it's the most efficient way that the UN at the moment are making corrugated structures for housing refugees in. So on this paper sheet here, I've got two on the sheet. They're printed in lithography, and then the next stage comes where I've got a huge amount of cutting to do. So you can see that I've cut and folded here. That tool you can see is called a bone folder. It's a bookbinding tool. So once these are printed, I have to pierce holes in them so that when I turn it over, I can actually see where I have to fold. And that's a pile of them you can see. The exhibition downstairs is going to have roughly 100 of this one here. I've still got 22 at the moment, as of this morning. But they're all folded, but I've still got to glue them together. And you'll get an idea of some of them that are glued once the next slide comes along. So the kind of broken lines, I've made all these things as part of the drawing, if you like. And then when they're cut and folded, they form into this building here. The work's not necessarily about refugees, it's about land use. I'm not a landscape artist, but most of what I do is based on landscape. So I'm really interested in the things and the interventions that we make into the landscape itself. So things like engineering projects, waterways, hydro, these are all things that have formed part of the work I make. But I've been doing things with buildings and tents for quite a long time, maybe about 22 years or so. So just to give you an idea of how these are folded, and I'm then going to go on to show you some of the prints that have come from it. So again, this is something, it's called the Hex House. It's actually a building which somebody has designed, but I've been using it in a slightly different way to make these three-dimensional models. So when they're printed, cutting and folding them becomes the most important aspect. This idea of something that's emergent and growing. The Azraq camp itself has been arranged in districts, so where the people are being displaced from in Syria, they're actually trying to house them in similar kind of villages on the map. And there'll be another piece in the exhibition which shows how that's going to evolve. This piece here is from Zatari, which is one of the more original camps. And you'll see that from the prints in the exhibition. But moving on very quickly to the printing process, because it's quite a magical thing to see. And this is an inking slab. Now, what you can see there is a stone. The slab itself is a stone, and that's where newspapers used to be printed from. That was the printing block. But we've moved on to using aluminium plates and zinc plates. So just to give you an idea of the process, this is oil-based ink, so it's still being rolled up. It's got a kind of tactility to it. It smells fantastic, and it's an amazing thing to work with, and so few people still seem to be interested. It's very easy just to press Command P and you get a print that comes out of a digital printer. That's the press. It's an offset lithographic press. The plate goes on one side, the paper goes on the far side. This one that I'm showing you here has got the plate uninked, and there's 3 colours already printed on the paper, which is on the other side. The blue bit you can see is called the blanket. That picks up the ink and transfers it to the blanket, and then it retransfers it again onto the paper. And that's a close-up of the plate without any ink on it. So the plate's made from a photographic darkroom process, but the image itself comes from a digital file. So these are all things I've made in a computer effectively. So it brings it back round to digital, the handmade, and then hand print them as well. So it gives you an idea. There's the plate here without any ink on it, and you can see the print on the far side. It registers together very, very accurately so that everything fits precisely on top of each other. And the process is called 4-colour separation. That's it with 3 colours. You can see it's still a bit washed out. When the black goes on, that's the final colour. It brings the full image out. The registration crosses, you can see, get wiped off in between so they don't appear in the final prints as well. I'm ahead of time. That's the press with the ink on it now, so I don't know if you can see the difference that the plate's now actually got black ink. The process is quite bizarre, really difficult to explain, but it's the difference between oil and water. In order for me to get the ink onto that plate, I have to damp it with a sponge with water on it. And when I roll over it with the ink on the roller, the ink only sticks to the image part of the plate. The water repels ink. I don't know if you've ever tried to pour anything oil-based in, if you do marbling, the two of them resist each other. There it is now with the final colour being added. You can see the ink is on the blanket. So each time the plate gets inked, it gets dried, it gets picked up, and then it gets transferred onto the paper. That gives you an idea of the sort of final close-up. I think there's one more slide after that. This camp here is called Kutupalong. This is the newest camp in Bangladesh. I believe it's the biggest one in the world at the moment. So this is just literally hot off the press, just finished printing that on Thursday. And it's the final look. I'm done.